The restaurant was buzzing with chatter, clinking glasses, and the soft strum of a guitar player near the corner. It was just another exhausting evening shift for Emily Carter, a 23-year-old waitress with a tired smile and aching feet. She wasn't just working for tips, she was working for survival. Every dollar she earned went toward keeping the electricity on in the tiny apartment she shared with her younger brother. Life hadn't been kind to her, but Emily carried herself with quiet dignity, never letting her pain spill into the service she gave. That night, fate decided to rewrite her story. At the farthest table by the window sat a man who drew everyone's attention, even though he wasn't trying to. His tailored navy suit, gold watch, and air of power made it clear he wasn't ordinary. He was Alexander Grant, a billionaire CEO known for turning struggling companies into empires. His face was on magazine covers, his name on skyscrapers, but here he was, eating dinner like any other guest. Emily's manager practically shoved her toward his table. "That's Mr. Grant," he whispered. "Don't mess this up. Treat him like royalty." Emily rolled her eyes slightly. Royalty or not, he was still just a man who needed his food on time. She walked over, not nervous but calm, holding her notepad and pen. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. What can I get started for you?" she asked politely. Alexander looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. For a split second, something flickered there, something he couldn't explain. He smiled faintly, gave his order, and went back to studying the leather folder he carried with him. When Emily returned with his drink, he set the folder aside. A paper slipped out and landed face up on the table. Emily's eyes caught it, not because she was nosy, but because her heart froze. It was a signed contract, and the signature at the bottom made her blood run cold. Her tray shook in her hands as she whispered, almost without thinking, "Sir, that's my dad's signature." Alexander froze mid-sip, the glass slipping from his fingers and shattering against the marble floor. The sound echoed, turning heads across the restaurant. He didn't even react to the spill, his eyes were locked on Emily. "What did you just say?" His voice was low, sharp, demanding. Emily pointed to the contract, her breath uneven. That signature. It belongs to my father, I'd recognize it anywhere. I used to watch him sign papers every night at our kitchen table before everything was taken away." The billionaire's face turned pale. He looked at her as though seeing a ghost. "Your father's name?" Alexander asked slowly. "Is Richard Carter, isn't it?" Emily's lips trembled. "Yes, Richard Carter." Do you know him?" Alexander leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding. Memories came flooding back, memories he had buried for over 20 years. Richard Carter wasn't just any man. He had once been Alexander's mentor, the man who believed in him when no one else did, the man who taught him business, integrity, and resilience. But Richard Carter had disappeared from the business world without a trace, ruined by betrayal and false accusations that Alexander himself had never been able to untangle. And now his daughter was standing right in front of him, wearing a stained apron and worn-out shoes, working late nights to survive. For a moment, Alexander couldn't breathe. "Emily," he whispered, almost reverently, "you don't understand what this means." Emily didn't know whether to trust him. All her life she had seen her father broken, haunted by some invisible weight he never spoke about. He had died when she was just 15, leaving her with only fragments of his story. Since then, she had been fighting tooth and nail to hold her family together, her younger brother still in school depending on her every move. "What are you talking about?" she asked carefully, still shaken. Alexander gestured for her to sit. For the first time that night, she wasn't just a waitress serving a meal. She was the missing piece of a story he thought had ended long ago. He told her about her father's brilliance, about the empire he had almost built, and the cruel betrayal that stripped him of everything. But what Alexander didn't tell her, what burned like fire inside him, was that he had carried guilt all these years. He had trusted the wrong people, and in his silence, Richard Carter had been destroyed. Emily's eyes welled with tears. "So you knew he was ruined, and you just lived your billionaire life while we suffered." Her words cut deep, sharper than any blade. "I didn't know the truth until it was too late," Alexander admitted, his voice breaking for the first time. "And I've carried that guilt every day. Emily, I owe your father everything, and now I owe you." At first, Emily wanted to storm off. She wanted to scream, to hate him, to tell him his money meant nothing after years of empty plates and sleepless nights. But something in his eyes stopped her. He wasn't arrogant now. He wasn't powerful. He was human, broken, regretful, and deep down, Emily knew her father wouldn't have wanted her to hold on to bitterness. He always told her, "Kindness is strength, Emmy. Never let the world turn your heart cold." So she listened. Alexander didn't just offer her money. He offered her a chance, a position at his company, training, mentorship. At first, Emily was suspicious, but he didn't give up. He visited the diner often, not as a billionaire, but as a man trying to make amends. Slowly, Emily allowed herself to trust. She took the opportunity not because she wanted wealth, but because she wanted her brother to have the life she never could. The road wasn't easy. She faced coworkers who mocked her for being just a waitress, board members who doubted her, and her own fear that she wasn't enough. But Emily worked harder than anyone. She studied late into the night, asked questions, pushed boundaries. And Alexander, he became the father figure she had lost, not replacing Richard, but honoring him, by guiding his daughter to the place he had once dreamed she'd reach. Years passed. Emily rose through the ranks, her sharp mind and compassionate heart setting her apart. She didn't just become successful, she became a force of change. She opened foundations to help struggling families, ensuring no one else endured the silent suffering she and her brother had faced. The world eventually learned who she was, the daughter of Richard Carter, the waitress who became a leader, the woman who carried both her father's legacy and her own. And Alexander, he stood proudly beside her, knowing he had finally done right by the man who had once believed in him. One day at a charity gala, Emily stood on stage. She spoke not about wealth or power, but about kindness, resilience, and forgiveness. She shared her father's words, the same words that had carried her through dark nights. Kindness is strength. Never let the world turn your heart cold. The audience rose in applause, not just for her success, but for her heart. And somewhere in that moment, Emily knew her father was smiling down on her. Now, my friends, what would you have done in Emily's place? Would you have forgiven Alexander, or would you have walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your hearts on this. If this story touched you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel Be Kind Always, where we bring you inspiring stories that remind us of the power of kindness, resilience, and second chances. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss the next one.